Let's imagine that we have maybe some comments and we want to make sure that they don't have, for example, dirty words. And if they are, we don't want to delete them. We just want to replace the dirty word with maybe symbols like you see in comics. So let's figure that out. We're going to say fixes, and that's going to be equal to an array. And I'll make sure I wrap this within PHP. Now, the key of the array will be the word we're looking for. So I don't think my bosses would like if I use bad words. So we'll use really tame words. We'll say but. And if you find but, we're going to replace that with 4 symbols to represent but. Look for idiot, and we'll do the same thing, IDIOT. And maybe we'll look for dumb, and we'll replace that one with, this is mostly for the example, keep in mind. So what we want to say is look through a comment that we provide. So we'll say comment equals, so we want to look through this string and say if you find any of these words, then I want you to replace them with their counterparts. First, we're going to start with a simple search and replace, because remember, if you don't require regular expressions, don't use them. Always use string replace if you don't need to use a specific regular expression. That's important. It'll be light years faster. So we'll start with this one, and it's the same syntax. So how can we just reference but, idiot, and dumb? Well, some people might create words, and then you could make that equal to an array. Now, we can automate this process because there's a PHP function called array keys, and that will create an array out of all the keys. And alternatively, there's a function called array values, which will do the exact same thing, but only for the values. So let's just use that for our example. First, what are we looking for? We're looking for any of the words within our keys. Array keys, and we need to pass it a parameter of the array. Next, what are we replacing it with? We're replacing it with array values, fixes. And then finally, the third parameter is what are we looking through? We're looking through comment. So I'll paste that in like so. Now, we need to store this, so I'm going to overwrite the value of comment and echo it out to see what we get. And if I load the page, you can see, sure enough, we've replaced the word but with its counterpart. So let's do another one. We'll say this, dumb, I am now more of an idiot after reading it. Something very nice that you might see on a YouTube comment. All right, so if I refresh the page, now you can see it looks for each of those sequences and replaces it. So this is an important distinction to make. We can pass arrays. You don't always have to pass strings. And just as we can do it with string replace, if we need to use regular expressions, which we will shortly, we can use preg replace instead, but still pass an array. So for example, as we can see here, but and dumb are both 4 letters. So really, we just want those to translate to 4 symbols. 1, 2, 3. It looks like I did 5 there by accident. But that's the basic idea, is we want to take the number of letters and replace it with the symbols. So there's a more automated way to do this, but why don't we just look for specific words and we want to group them together by the number of letters. So rather than doing but equals this symbol, and then we could say dumb equals this exact symbol, let's group them together. And we'll use preg replace to do that. Now, the only difference between string replace and preg replace, other than the fact that we're using regular expressions, is with this function, each one of these keys needs to be a properly formatted regular expression, which means it needs to be wrapped with delimiters like so. Next, I'm going to say look for but or dumb, using the pipe for regular expressions, and then I can replace that. And then we'll say look for idiot, and then another 5-letter word. We'll use a bad one now. And we're going to say look for any of these 5-letter words, and then replace it with this 5-character sequence. So now everything should work identically. Let's try it out. I'm going to come back to Chrome, and if I refresh the page, that still works. And then at the begin, we'll just add a word. And now notice I'm making this uppercase. So let's see what happens. Will that be replaced? Reload the page, and no, it's not being replaced because we have not passed an I flag. So if you want to do this with each one, pass an I flag, like so. Now let's try it, refresh, and now that is being replaced. So what you should take away from this is when you have an array of items that you need to replace with a different array, and this is something you may find happens quite a bit, I know it does for me, you don't always have to run an each statement and run your preg match or your preg replace over and over and over. You can simply pass an array of searches and then an array of replacements. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to use callback functions within preg replace so that you can actually perform operations before you set your replacement.